by the jury from any angle in the courtroom. We have a number of things to address this morning. We're going to start with the motion for mistrial. Take this off. We're going to start with the motion for mistrial that was made by the defense concerning some information that you saw on YouTube or Law&Crime or something, indicating that when the officer made the norm comment, the jury was in the room. As I told you, we have the court reporter who was here who heard the entire transaction, so she's here ready to testify. Let's start with that. I did get an email from the defense this morning indicating that you were actually withdrawing that motion. Is that correct?
No, I'm not withdrawing the motion for mistrial.
Based on the YouTubers saying?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And the only other thing I wanted to add is my client pointed out to me.
You got to turn your mic on. So let me get this straight. According to the email I saw, you were not proceeding on the motion for mistrial based on the YouTubers.
Correct.
Okay, but that one, the state wants it on the record anyway from the court reporter, is my understanding? All right, so let me address that first so the record stays clear. So let's put her on under oath. You solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
You could have a seat in the witness box. Mr. Williams, I'll let you inquire, and then Mr. Lenneman, of course, whatever you want to ask.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, could you please tell us your full name and spell your last name?
Rebecca Ruiz, R-U-I-Z.
And I think you can take your mask down to make sure
Yeah, you
that
can take
everybody
it down.
can hear you. And where are you currently employed, Ms. Ruiz?
State of Florida.
And how long have you been employed with the state of Florida?
17 years.
What do you do currently with the state of Florida?
I'm an official court reporter.
And were you working in your capacity as an official court reporter yesterday afternoon, Wednesday, October 27th of 2021?
Yes.
And specifically, were you reporting the goings-on of the trial of State of Florida versus Markeith Loyd?
Yes.
Did there come a point where you observed Detective Shane Overfield of the Orlando Police Department on the witness stand?
Yes.
And was there a time when you heard him make a statement referencing a Deputy Norm Lewis?
Well, he never used that name. The statement
Okay.
that he made was, did I say his name? I don't think I know his name, or I don't think I even knew his name, something to that effect.
All right, now, where were you sitting in relation to Detective Overfield when you heard this?
Right in front of the jury box, the witness box.
So maybe 5 feet from him?
Less.
Less than 5 feet. And you just repeated verbatim what you heard.
Correct.
At the time the statement was made, was the jury in the courtroom?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross, Mr. Lenneman.
Yes, thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, you were the court reporter transcribing this event during trial, correct?
Correct. Well, one of them.
And there were actually two portions that you were involved in. You were involved in a portion when Detective Overfield was testifying before the jury.
Correct.
And then you were involved in overhearing some things after the jury went out.
Correct.
Okay. I want to talk about what happened while the jury was here.
Okay, wait. I need the record to stay straight. Right now, all we're addressing is whether or not the comment by Overfield was made while the jury was present. Do you have any questions about that?
Not while the jury was not present.
Okay, so, and you've conceded that basis for a motion for mistrial, you're withdrawing that one.
Right, but my concern...
Hold on, I know what your concern is.
Okay.
My concern is the record, all right?
Yes, on that basis.
So, that motion for mistrial, on the basis that there was that the jury might have overheard the officer say anything about using Norm's name, Detective Overfield, is denied. There is no evidence that the jury was in the room at the time. You want to ask her questions about what? The mistrial I already denied about Overfield saying the two officers who died on the stand?
Yes, I do, because I don't want there to be confusion on the record that there are two different incidents.
I don't think the record's confused about that, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, we would object to eliciting any testimony about that because it was recorded by the court reporter.
There is an official transcript of that. It's in the transcript. I have a copy of it.
Okay.
So asking her questions about it is
That's fine.
not
Then I want
necessary.
to address, though, that particular statement.
So we're done with Ms. Reeves. She can
Yes.
step off. Thank you. Okay. All right. You've already made a motion for mistrial on this, and I've denied it. So
Correct, but I did not point out
Do you want to, let me finish, Mr. Lenneman. Do you want to add to your record?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, Judge, it doesn't appear, it's in the transcript, that Mr. Williams acknowledged that there were two officers that were deceased in his response to the detective. He asked this question: did you eventually obtain some guidance on what to do with your projectile? And the answer was yes. He asked me to attempt to make contact with the CSI, and I called CSI Karen Livergood. Livergood, I apologize, and she was busy. There were multiple incidents that stemmed from this, that there was two officers that were deceased. That's what it says in the transcript. And Mr. Williams' response is, yes, sir, I'm familiar. So after we filed a motion in limine, and then it was stipulated by both parties that we would not ever bring this up, the prosecutor himself acknowledges about the two officers. And that's what I wanted to add to the record, Judge.
State.
I don't need to tell the court that that is not the entirety of my response. And I think it was addressed at the bench when the motion was initially made, that my statement, I'm familiar, was stepping over the detective to make sure that he did not go any further with the statement about the second officer. By the way, which the record doesn't say second officer, or doesn't mention Norm Lewis, and all it says is deceased. So there's nothing in the record that even directly references the deputy or the court's order. But I did, in my view, immediately step over the testimony of the detective to ensure that the court's order was abided by. And as I mentioned at sidebar when we argued this initially, the answer was non-responsive. So I vehemently deny the suggestion that I in any way attempted to bring out the information or did anything but everything I could to ensure that it did not come out.
All right, the court ruled on this yesterday, but I'm going to reiterate what I'm saying. I did review the transcript in detail, all of it, including up until we went sidebar on the motion that was made by the defense as to what exactly this officer said on the stand. It was very quick. There was no mention made that Mr. Loyd was in any way involved in this. He clearly said there was a second officer who died, but I think it went by so fast. I offered the defense a curative instruction. The defense said no for reasons that are legitimate, which is it would just have drawn attention to it. I just don't believe that the jury, if they caught it, I don't think any harm was done. So motion for mistrial is denied. Now, we need to move on to something else, folks. I was advised by deputies this morning of two separate incidents involving the jury. Actually, it's multiple incidents. So I'm going to start with the one that I believe is an easier one to resolve. 3 deputies have been asked by jurors, either here at the courthouse or on the ride to and from the hotel, how much their gun belts weigh. 2 deputies said, I don't know. 1 deputy said 30 pounds. State. I am, by the way, going to talk to the jury again this morning. Go ahead. About conversations.
Right, I think the only thing we have to say at this point is that any law enforcement officers having contact with jurors should not be answering questions about anything that's not directly related to making sure they have what they need. If you're asking, I don't know what else the court is asking about, but that's the statement that I would make at this point.
Defense?
I'm thinking, Judge.
I'm sorry?
I'm thinking.
Okay. You're going to need to put your mic on after you finish thinking. The jurors were previously instructed by the court in their package that they are not to have any conversations with the deputies other than about the weather and sports, and I specifically wrote that out. Go ahead.
Judge, our position is that...
Mr. Lindeman, I can't hear you when you're sitting down.
Our position, Judge, is that you should instruct them just as you said you were going to do.
Okay, I'm going to re-instruct them because they've been instructed once. All right, here's the next issue. I have the juror numbers here. I'm not going to call them out at the moment. It's 2 alternates and 2 folks sitting on the jury. Last night, 4 jurors were in the juror lounge. Deputies overheard the following comments. Judge is getting frustrated, long breaks, sidebars, and everything keeps stopping. Defense is over him, Loyd and his outburst. The deputies immediately intervened. The supervisor was called. The jurors were told you cannot discuss anything about this case until you've reached a verdict form. The judge has instructed you on this. The jurors stopped the conversation. One of the 4 jurors that was involved also made a comment to I think the supervisor, I'm not 100% sure which deputy. And the comment was, if they were honest back at the courthouse, half of these people wouldn't be here. We are more strict here at the hotel. I was told about this about 8:30 this morning. Which part? All of it? The last one? If they were honest back at the courthouse, half of these people wouldn't be here. We are more strict here at the hotel. I have no idea what that means. The deputies followed my instructions, which is you are not to say anything other than you cannot talk about this case until the judge sends you in to deliberate. So you need to stop talking. I don't know what any of these comments mean. My intention was to let you all know and then bring the jurors in one at a time if necessary and start having conversations with them. Again, we have 2 alternates and 2 jurors who are part of the 12 that are involved in this. And then the last comment, hold on, I have to check a juror number to tell you that's an alternate or someone on the panel. It's an alternate who's involved in the last comment. State.
We have no objection, Judge.
All right. Let me start with juror number 2000, please. What?
I obviously know that
I can't hear a word you're saying.
Judge, I obviously know you probably will ask this, but obviously it appears there may be other conversations taking place between these jurors.
I'm going to find out.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not one for sugarcoating problems. We need to give him a mic, please. Good morning, how are you?
Hi.
Okay. I have some questions for you about some conversations that occurred at the hotel yesterday.
Sure.
It's very important that you tell me the truth about all of this. As I've told you all from the beginning, the only thing we're actually looking for in this case is the truth. And we need to make sure that jurors are following instructions so that any verdict that is rendered is a fair verdict to both sides. So let me start by asking, did you have a conversation yesterday with 3 other jurors in the juror lounge about anything that was going on in this courtroom?
Not the evidence.
We need
I'm
the,
sorry.
yeah.
Not evidence or not any testimony or anything like that. I think somebody felt, I don't know if I want to say your frustration with like interruptions and things like that. I'm not sure. And I think that's what it had to do with all the meetings and the stoppages and things like that.
Okay. Did anyone talk about or say something to the effect of the defense is over him?
I don't remember
Remember
those.
that? Do you remember anything, any comments about Mr. Loyd or his attorneys?
No.
Do you remember why anyone thought I was frustrated?
I don't know if it's facial expression. I'm not sure. I was just there.
Okay. Is there anything about what was said that would influence your decision about the verdict in this case, one
No.
way or another? All right.
No.
Then you apparently had a conversation with a deputy in which you made a comment along the lines of, if they were honest back at the courthouse, half of these people wouldn't be here. We're more strict here at the hotel. Did you have a conversation like that?
Not that per se.
Not that specific?
No.
I mean, this is paraphrasing, I think. What was the conversation that you had?
Okay, I think with the lists that everybody's been giving you about every single thing, I felt that I think I was looking at the why behind the what. And I think jurors felt that the instructions for the sequester were not what's happening in the sequester. What I mean by that is the sequester is actually a lot more strict
Okay.
than what they were expecting. And I said to her, I think that's why you're getting these lists of concerns.
So this was about the questions about having a drink at dinner or not
Yes.
not having enough games
Yes.
to play, all the administrative questions
Yes.
you all have been asking me.
Yes.
Okay. Have there been any conversations that you have overheard about this case other than what we have discussed this morning?
No.
All right. State, do you have any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Now, I know that there has been interaction with the deputies that have been reported. But did you have any other interaction with deputies where you asked questions related to the case?
No.
Did you overhear any of those conversations?
No.
Is there any conflict between you and any other juror?
Not that I know of.
Okay. So what you're saying, that this was all related to the issue of these lists and that you guys being kept at the hotel during this process is much stricter than people thought it was?
Right, you put 18 individuals together, and what we got was like a 4-page informational about what a sequester is. And again, we're all laymen. We don't know
Right.
anything about this process. And people are used to being free to say things. I mean, sometimes people just spontaneously say things because they're working out of stress or whatever. No one's trying to do the wrong thing. That's what I think. And I think that's why you might be hearing some ancillary conversations and pieces of conversations that may not be what they appear to be. And that's just my opinion, and I see things. And I see the stress on the deputies' faces when they see that there's another list and they're getting instructions from the judge. That's got to be stressful for them because they're just trying to be safe for us. They're trying to keep our safety. And that's where I'm at with it. And that's one of the reasons I said to the sergeant, I said, I know you probably don't like getting those lists of, quote unquote, I don't know if we want to say the word complaints, but I want to use the word concerns. They probably don't like it, and I would guess. They want to do the best by us as well as do what their duty is. So that's all I said.
So what you're saying, and just want to make sure I'm clear, is that you're empathetic to the plight that the deputies have in dealing with jurors.
Yes.
Okay. And therefore, you obviously don't agree with some of the things the other jurors are saying or asking for.
Again, 18 individuals. We are not going to agree on every single thing, but they're an individual. They'll be responsible for what they write down on the list or what we agree to. Some things I agree to, some things I don't.
Okay, and the final question is, were you one of the participants in the conversation where you felt sympathetic or empathetic to the judge's plight and her responsibility?
I don't know if it would be sympathetic or empathetic. It would be, I guess you could say it's empathetic because I would say understanding, but, you know, she's got to keep this going. She's got to keep the trial moving forward. And I think that's what the gist of the conversation was.
And is there sides, like you're on one side and the
Objection to
jurors?
this question.
Sustained. You're going to.
I have nothing for
All right. Thank you, sir. You can return to the jury room. Right. Let me speak to juror 294, please. I forgot. Claire, can you bring out 2000 for me real quickly, please? 2000, bring him back out here, please. Thanks. I forgot, you can stand right there. I forgot to tell you, you are not to discuss anything we discussed in this courtroom with anyone else. All right, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. As I've told you all along, when I ask you all questions, when any of us ask you questions, the only thing we're looking for is the truth, okay?
Sure.
We have to make sure that things are running the way they're supposed to in these cases. So I have a report that you were involved in a conversation with 3 other jurors last night in the jury lounge concerning things that were happening in the courtroom.
Yep.
Can you tell me what was said, please?
Yeah, there was a comment about yourself being frustrated about the audio
About
usage.
audio, you said?
Yeah, microphone usage by one specific individual.
Okay. Anything else that you remember about that conversation?
No, that was the conversation as
Were
far
any
as I remember.
Or any comments made about Mr. Loyd and his defense lawyers or his defense lawyers?
Not at all.
Okay. Any other conversations that you've had about anything that's going on in this courtroom?
Not at all.
Okay. Have you overheard any other juror having a conversation about this case?
No, ma'am.
And I'm going to instruct all the jurors, when I told you all you can't talk about the case, I meant literally, you can't talk about anything. You can't talk about whether the lights went off in the courtroom. But I clearly was not that specific, and I'm going to be, all right?
Yeah, no problem. I was just
So-
listening.
I understand. I'm just trying to find out what happened. We need to have a clean record as to what occurred. So, State, do you have any questions?
We don't, Your Honor. Thank you.
Defense, do you have any questions? Okay.
Good afternoon, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Were they talking about me?
Yep.
Okay. And what were they saying besides the microphone issue?
That was literally it. I think there was a comment that there was some frustration over the microphone.
And in terms of frustration, was anything said that they were blaming me for not wearing a microphone properly?
No,
Okay. Was there any blame towards the defense at all
it wasn't a conversation. It was one comment.
by one person?
Yep.
Okay. Judge, I don't know if this is appropriate to find out who that juror was.
I'm going to ask the other
Okay.
jurors.
I have nothing further. Thank
All
you,
right,
sir.
thanks. Thank you, sir. You can't discuss anything we just talked about, all right? Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm going to need 797, please. Good morning, have a seat. How are you this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. Yourself?
Okay, so I have some questions for you, and the attorneys may have some questions.
Okay.
We're just trying to find out what happened, so just tell us the truth, okay? Were you involved in a conversation yesterday in the juror lounge after last night's court proceedings that involved anything about anything that may have happened in this courtroom?
Yes.
Can you tell me what that conversation was?
We just briefly said that it seemed like you. I'm trying to say you, or maybe
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Go ahead and take your mask down. It said what?
I really can't describe what was said, but pretty much about the attorney. It seemed like sometimes you can't hear him, and he gets a little upset sometimes, pretty much.
That I get upset?
Not him, that's the attorney.
That he gets upset?
Yeah, sometimes
Okay.
because can't hear him. And in turn, you might get a little upset as well. Not upset, but, you know, with the process, pretty much.
Was it one person? Everybody was talking about it?
There were, I think, maybe 4 of us, and one person said one thing, and someone said, just read what they said. So it wasn't every single one. It was like 4 of us watching a basketball game, and we're just sitting around, and we just brought it up. And it was very brief, in a way. It was nothing, I mean, just our observation.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Was anything else said about the defense at all, Mr. Loyd, his lawyers, anything like that?
No.
Is there anything about the conversation that would influence you one way or another in this case?
Not at all, no.
All right,
No.
thank you. State, you have any questions?
We didn't think anything of it. If we did, we wouldn't have, even discussed it. We just thought it was just like a general conversation that wouldn't affect anything at all.
Okay. State, you have any questions?
We do not, Your Honor.
Mr. Lenneman, do you have any
Yes, thank you.
questions?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, pretty good. How about yourself?
So I assume I was the topic of conversation.
Not really you, but it's like a general conversation. It wasn't specifically addressed to you. It wasn't at all, no.
Okay. So I wasn't the one that you guys were talking about that was either not using his microphone properly or getting frustrated with his microphone or any of those things that I thought I interpreted you saying.
No, you was mentioned, yes, but not really about you specifically. Sometimes, I guess the witness wouldn't hear you, and you might raise your voice somewhat, but not really that much.
Okay. So did you interpret that as, was there criticism about the way I was handling that portion of my job?
It wasn't a criticism at all, no. There wasn't a criticism at all, no.
Okay. Just an observation.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
I don't have any further questions. Judge.
Thank you, sir. You can't talk about anything we just talked about, but you
Right.
can go back to the jury
Yeah.
room.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
You're welcome.
Can you send juror 781 in, please? Have a seat, sir. Good morning, how are you?
I'm doing good.
I'm good. I have some questions for you about last night at the hotel.
Yeah.
As in any time that we ask you questions, we just need you to be honest with us, okay?
Okay.
Were you involved in a conversation in the jurors' lounge after court was over yesterday with 3 other jurors about anything that went on in this courtroom?
I was in the juror's lounge, and I was in the same group. I wasn't a part of the conversation, but I did hear the conversation.
Okay, what did you hear?
So I heard they were talking about basically like the attorneys. So saying, you know, this attorney is kind of like this, that attorney is kind of like that. Just like talking about, you know, how each attorney is acting, I guess.
Okay. Were they being critical of the lawyers or just commenting?
It was basically just commenting, because
Did they say anything else that you can remember?
no,
Did you comment on any of it?
no,
Is there anything that was talked about or commented on that would influence you one way or another in making a decision in this case?
no.
State, you have any questions?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go
Was
ahead.
there any conversation about the evidence in the case at all?
No, there's no evidence, discussion of evidence.
That's all, Judge. Thank you.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So what I heard you say was the others were commenting about more than just one attorney.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you remember what the comments were?
It was sort of about like, you know, how like, you know, okay, so for example, you know, how the mic is like, okay, this attorney's, their mic is sometimes not on, for example, and stuff like that, and you can't hear them talking, things like that. It's along the lines of like that kind of like the behavior. It's like things you've noticed in that regard.
Okay. And was the attorneys whose mic wasn't on, were they referring to me?
Yes.
Okay. Did they refer to any other attorney in the conversation?
Yes.
Who was that?
This gentleman here.
You're pointing to,
On the left, I don't know my name.
okay, on your left?
On my left, yes.
So this gentleman right here?
Yes.
Okay. He's pointing to Mr. Williams. And what was said about Mr. Williams?
Okay, so yeah, they were saying, basically, you know, he's making a lot of objections. So it's like persistent or something like that. Comments around that nature.
Okay. And were they being critical of him?
Not necessarily. I guess it was just like, I'm not sure how the conversation started, but they just made comments about, you know, this, he's making a lot of objections, and then, you know, like your mic is going off or it's not on and stuff like that. But it wasn't like an opinion on how, you know, like a critical opinion or anything.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, so have you been part of any other conversations about this case outside of this courtroom?
No.
All right. Thank you very much. Please don't discuss what we've talked about with the other jurors. Just go on back to the jury room. I'll be
Okay.
with you all in a minute. Thanks. State, anything you want to say? I'm going to instruct these jurors again, but State,
No, Your Honor, we do not.
defense? All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring them in, and I'm going to instruct them again. I'm going to be a lot more specific. And I'm going to address the issue of the fact that jurors think I'm getting frustrated. I don't think there's anything else I can do. So nothing of this, I mean, I assume nobody is moving for me to remove any of these jurors. State?
We are not moving, Your Honor.
Defense? We are not. All right. All right. Anything else before I bring the panel in?
Bring the panel in to begin evidence and.
No, bring the panel in for me to chat with them.
Oh, okay. We need a few minutes 5 minutes maybe before we start testimony, but as far as before you have a conversation, no, Your Honor.
That's fine. Can you do it while I'm talking to the jurors? Can one of you take care of starting your, or are you going to need a break after I talk to them to get done what you need done?
We're going to need a break. I apologize, but
That's not a problem. They're going to need a break probably too after I chat with them.
Well, Judge, we have a discovery issue.
right,
I believe
well-
it's a discovery violation.
Well, let me talk to the jurors so they can absorb what I'm telling them. I'm going to have to send them out of the room anyway, and then we'll talk about whatever it is you all
Okay.
want to talk about. Let's bring the entire panel in, please. State recognized, presence of the jury.
we do, Your Honor.
Defense?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, good morning, everyone. I wanted to chat with you all a little bit before we start testimony this morning. It's come to my attention that a couple of things are going on that I think are a result of me not giving you correct instruction, or giving you not enough instructions. We sometimes forget that this is something we're used to doing, and jurors are not. This is all new to you. So sometimes I leave out specifics. So I'm going to give them to you now, because I want to make sure that you're properly instructed and understand. So let me go over again what we mean by you can't have any discussions about this case outside of this courtroom. It literally means absolutely nothing. You don't even talk about the lights going off in the courtroom if they should happen to go off. I mean, that's an exaggeration. But anything that's related to the trial, the people in the trial, the clerks, the attorneys, the people in the audience, you can't talk about any of that. You cannot discuss this case or anything about it outside of jury deliberations when you're handed the case to reach a verdict. Does everybody follow me? And I do apologize, folks, but like I said, we sometimes assume more than we should about what you guys know, right? So that's the first thing I wanted to talk to you about. The second thing is the deputies, don't ask them anything. Remember in your jury packets I said, talk to them about sports and the weather? Talk to them about sports and the weather. You can talk to them about the hotel and how nice it is or it isn't, but don't ask them anything about them, their jobs, even as innocuous as it seems, the patch on their uniform. Don't ask them. It puts them in a really awkward position. I have instructed them as to what conversations they can have with you so that neither the deputy nor you gets into a situation that causes a mistrial or a problem in the case. And so anything outside of the world's most innocuous topics, the World Series is on. How many of you are baseball fans? Talk to them about the World Series. There's not a lot of you that are baseball fans, but the hotel, how nice it is, the weather. You can talk about your family, your kids, your grandkids, your dogs. Just stay off the subject of anything that's not completely neutral and has nothing to do with the legal system, their jobs, or anything else. And then lastly, I want to address an issue with you all. I don't think it's a secret that I find the sound system in this courtroom frustrating. I think everyone finds the sound system in this courtroom frustrating. And I try very hard not to remain completely neutral, not to communicate to any of you, and have apparently failed miserably, and for that I apologize. You should not read into anything that my frustration with the sound system, that I'm angry or upset with any of the lawyers or anyone, because I'm not. I'm just frustrated that you guys can't hear, I can't hear. I'm constantly having to say to folks, please speak up. I've got a lot going on up here beyond having to listen to this, and I'm afraid I've let that frustration show. And for that, I apologize. I'm a little embarrassed by it because it's not my job. It's my job not to let that frustration show. But please don't assume by anything I say or do that I prefer one side over another or that I'm upset with anybody, because I'm not. I do this all day long, every day, and I'm used to the ins and outs of trials and the having to repeat myself. It's common in trials. In this courtroom, every judge who tries a case in here finds themselves saying at least 10 times a day, I can't hear you, turn your mic on, speak up, please. So ignore my reactions because they don't have anything to do with the case itself, and they have literally nothing to do with the decision you all are about to make. I'm not involved in that decision. You're the ones that are going to make that decision, and you should not take anything I do or say to indicate to you that I prefer one verdict over another, because I do not. I am completely neutral in this. It's your job to make the decision in this case, okay? Anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
If I miss a word from anybody, who can I ask?
Raise your hand when you miss it and say, I did not hear that, okay? At the time you miss something because of the sound system, let me know. And really, that is what stresses me out, is I'm sitting here wondering, can the jury hear what's happening? So if you can't hear or you miss something, raise your hand and let us know when it happens. We'll have the witness repeat their answer, all right? Is it better now that I've had the witnesses take their masks off? Oh, good, okay. Any other questions? No. All right, I wanted to chat with you all. It's been kind of a different morning for all of you. So I'm going to send you back into the jury room. We need to set up some technology stuff. Have a cup of coffee, relax. We're going to start the testimony when we bring you back in again. All right, thank you, folks.